Welcome to ChoreoCollab Podcast, where we discuss dance, film, collaboration, and more. Brought to you by Central Florida Choreographers Collaboration. I'm your host, Amanda Van Meter Birch. Today I'll be talking with Carla Armstrong about her collaboration with us for Season 3, Project 34, Heard. Hi, Carla. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So just to jump right in, tell us a little bit about your dance background.
Okay. So I actually started dancing when I was about 5, but before that, really my love of dance came from my love of Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. So my older cousin had started dance classes, and I went to her recital, and she got to do a dance in a Minnie Mouse costume. And I thought that was heaven. So after she finished her dance, I immediately went to my parents and I said, I want to take dance classes. I want to dance like Minnie Mouse. And they couldn't afford it, quite honestly. So they kept putting me off and kept saying, we'll see, we'll see. Apparently, I begged my parents at least once a week for almost a year.
Aw.
So finally, they managed to scrape up enough money and could see I was really determined. And that was how I started dance. So I took ballet and tap to start, and then later took jazz. And then was fortunate to be able to attend a brand new performing arts magnet high school program. So I got to actually dance during my high school classes for about 3 of the 7 classes for dance. And that is where I really kind of became more serious about it. And then eventually from there, I auditioned and was flabbergasted when I was accepted into Juilliard and attended there, and then performed professionally with a couple of small modern dance companies. One's Avada Dance Ensemble, and the other one was Omega Dance Ensemble, fabulous companies, and I love the work. And but I always knew I wanted to keep dancing, but I also had to earn a living and pay for my rent. And I didn't want to wait tables. I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually went into the business side. So I was lucky enough to get a job with Gaynor Minden, the point shoe manufacturer. I was their first full-time employee. And so even as I was dancing professionally in these companies, they were all part-time companies. I was working full-time in some sort of arts related job. So I was with Gaynor Minden for about 5 years. And then from there, I went and became first an advertising manager and then associate publisher of a technical theater magazine called Stage Directions, based out in New York. And then eventually I'd moved to Florida with my now husband. Wanted to start a family, and I couldn't travel as much anymore with little ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting a fundraising job. And I became the director of corporate giving and sponsorship at the Strauss Center in Tampa Bay. And that led me into fundraising. So through this whole time, I was performing until I moved to Florida. I hung up my professional shoes, but I started teaching shortly after. And I've loved. I actually think I might love teaching even more than performing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been up to.
Wow. That's an amazing dance journey. I love that. So let's jump into your project. Tell us a little bit about that for this season.
Yeah, this is my 3rd dance film. All of them have been with Central Florida Choreographers Collaboration. So very proud to be a part of that, and excited because I had never done a dance film before. I'd been choreographing for many, many years, but had always choreographed for the stage. So each film that I've done, I've tried to learn a lot, but I honestly still feel very much like a beginner when I'm choreographing for film. Yeah,
I can relate.
it's a totally different viewpoint. And I like to say that I feel like film offers an opportunity for an intimacy in the piece that cannot necessarily be found as easily from a proscenium theater, where there's a big separation between the audience and the performer. So this third piece, as I've tried to learn along the way, was really it's called herd, and it's got sort of a little double entendre. It's herd as in a herd of people or group, and then also heard as in the verb, like to hear or be heard. And I was really struck by, quite honestly, the political divisions that are going on and how people who are otherwise very much the same can still be very much divided by certain beliefs, not all beliefs, but some beliefs. And I started watching the dynamics of how some people felt afraid to say their opinion because they didn't want to stand out in the crowd. They kind of wanted to stay and go with the flow. And then others did. They felt very passionate and they wanted to be that one voice speaking for the many. And then seeing the reaction of how other people reacted to that. And interestingly, some people then started following that person, like saying, "Oh, well, I agreed with you." Like they weren't willing to stand up and say it themselves, but once someone else did, then they started feeling like they had a voice. And you could see, I've seen in groups, I've experienced it where you have one dynamic and then one person stands up and says
Mhm.
something, and then others start to join, and suddenly it's shifted. The
Mhm.
whole group as a whole in our need to feel like we're part of a community and part of a group for safety and for survival and just for just general friendliness, wanting to have friends and not be alone.
Mhm.
Um, I found that really fascinating, and I was watching it play out in so many different ways. Politics was kind of where it seemed really present, especially in the media. But I started thinking about how that was true in business, how that was true in family, how that was true in many different types of social circles. And so I just wanted to explore that a little bit with the dancers and see if I could try to have that concept kind of come out.
Hmm. So definitely a piece for today, and I think definitely something everybody can relate to at this point. Um, so why personally was this theme important for you?
Mostly because I work in my full-time job outside of dance is one in which I'm in a very public profile. I represent an organization, and so I'm honestly not always able to share my personal thoughts because it might then reflect so much on the organization, because I am visible in the community. So it was interesting to feel that like I wanted to speak out, but I felt like I couldn't. And my own personal, journey on that inner struggle made me maybe a little bit more sensitive to what others who might be going through that as well.
Mm, wow. Um, so what was your process in choreographing this? How did you approach it?
I had a basic concept, and my choreographic process is I have to do it in the studio in the moment. I never pre-plan any movement. I would rather come up with something bad and throw it away and have it be what it is than try to plan something, because every time I've tried to plan choreography without the dancers in the room, it's terrible. Like it's just terrible. Like so I'd rather choreograph to on the dancers that I'm working with so that I feel like it can fit more naturally with their own movement style. And I consider that part of the collaboration that I have with the dancers. It's not
Mhm.
me just like a dictator saying, here's the movement and do what I say. I like to put the movement on their body and then tweak it and change it and sort of shape it
Mhm.
to better fit something that I feel like they can feel good moving and conveying as well, and also be able to add their own individual voice to it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about you as a choreographer and how a lot of like from what I've seen all of your work it just seems to come naturally to them. It seems to be like their own voice and they seem pretty comfortable in it and so I love that about your work.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm blessed with working with really amazing dancers.
That too.
Um, I think, of course, we can't do it without the dancers. I can have the best idea in my head, and it's just an idea in my head without movement and bodies to make that idea come to life. So I definitely feel like I have to give a lot of the credit to the dancers because they also give of themselves. And having been a former dancer, not dancing anymore, but I remember that process and how hard that is because you're sitting there trying to figure out what do they want. What are they asking me to do? And you're kind of, is it this? Is it that? And I give them a lot of credit for being able to help connect to that movement, make it real.
So what was your relationship like with them, with the dancers?
Well, I was blessed this year because I knew all the dancers. I'd worked with each of them previously in some way, shape, or form for the most part. So many of them are currently my students at the studio where I teach. Others were dancers that I had worked with in either one or both of my previous films with CFCC. So I think I had one or two new ones who I had had a chance to see how they moved at one of the CFCC project meetups. And I really loved the way they moved, and it just kind of all gelled and bonded. So I felt like it felt very family-like to me. And I hope they felt the same.
So how do you think that they interpreted the choreography and the subject matter that you gave them?
I thought they did a great job, especially because I tend to keep my dancers a bit in the dark at the beginning. So I don't always explain my concepts first. I tend to like to put the movement out there and see what they do with it because I like to see them kind of find a way to develop it without a preconceived notion, to find something in the movement just as movement by itself before I start putting these ideas on top of it. So the first few rehearsals are always me saying, here's the movement, try this. And they're kind of like, we have no idea what we're doing, what this is for, what it means, but okay, here we go. And then as we get a little bit further into the choreography, then I start to share a little bit more. Like I like to share it a little bit at a time. I like to give them just enough because part of it is I like to see what they come up with on their own. And I feel like if I tell them everything that I'm thinking, it shuts down ideas that they may bring to the movement. And for me, the joy is finding, what they bring and what I can bring and how we can create something completely different together. And the piece always does come out differently than I imagined. I have an idea at the beginning, but it never stays there. It's always a completely different dance by the end. Right. I like that.
I like that too. So talk a little bit about the film and technical aspects of this project.
Yeah. So this film, I actually had a couple of very clear concepts that I wanted. And a lot of it had to do with the space that I wanted to film in. So for me, the venue was really, really important to shaping sort of some of the logistics, the technical aspects of the film. So I knew the venue I chose, I knew that there were essentially 3 spaces in this beautiful, old, refurbished schoolhouse. Over 100 years old, but they had refurbished it beautifully. And I knew I wanted the library, and I wanted the staircase. They had this beautiful grand staircase that split into 2. As you go up, you go right or left. And then as you go upstairs, it's just this great hall. And it's this beautiful wooden floor with windows on almost every wall and just lots of natural sunlight. So the challenge was in the library, it was pretty small. And so fitting all the dancers in there. And I knew that section I wanted them seated and with one person kind of popping up, like out of the crowd. I wanted to create a sense of chaos or a little bit as like a building sense of drama, but I didn't want it to be necessarily in the movement. For this one, this is where I'm trying to play more with what we can do with film that we can't do on stage. And I knew I wanted to create that sense of like drama or urgency or even a little bit of chaos from the camera's point of view. So I set up a really interesting technical challenge for myself and our team, which is you, where almost the first 2 minutes of the dance, of the film is one shot,
Yes.
and the dancers are in the center, and the camera person is doing a 360 rotation around the dancers over and over and over, and the movement keeps building. So I had that very clear in my head, and to me that was my favorite part for the whole technical aspect, because it was so new to
Mhm.
me. Not probably not new to the world, but definitely new to me. And and I wanted to see if I could do it and see if we could, like, and it took a few tries, but I'm really proud of. I feel like we captured the timing and the angles and the movement that I was hoping for as I choreographed it. So that was my favorite part of the technical aspect. And then in the room, it was really just a more, the staircase was pretty simple. There's not that section's not that long. And then up in the grand hall, as I call it, really just wanting to have it showcase the difference between this tight little cramped library to a big
Mm.
wide open space, and what that meant, that freedom to express, to find your tribe or find your group,
Mm.
and that voice and that kind of thing. So
Mm. Yeah, I love the location. The location was amazing, and I thought it fit the piece so well. With those deep-seated meanings. And I am actually very proud of that shot too. That
you
one
should
shot.
be.
That was some complicated stuff. And we did it. Like there were times where it was like we almost got it, but we didn't quite get the timing right on this. So it was like, but let's do it again. Um, it was
And,
fun. It was really fun.
and
But
it was
yeah.
something that we practiced in rehearsal. Like, so
Mhm.
I mean, definitely that was one of the lessons I learned from previous films that I tried to apply this time, which is don't just choreograph, practice. Like, what were the camera
Mhm.
angles I wanted to get? What was the timing? Is it logistically possible for someone to circle that large of a group in the tempo and time of the music that I was hoping for? Did I have to adjust the choreography to make that physically possible? Um, so there was a lot of actual planning in that one shot, in the rehearsal process, and then of course the actual doing took
Mhm.
several tries, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's such a good tool, I think, for anybody who's making a film, especially to people who are new to making film and may not be familiar with the process of storyboarding and different shots and what they mean and what's possible. But it's just take out your phone and see if it works, you know? I mean, it's not gonna look exactly the same as on, a more high-end camera, but it gives you the perspective that you need to see if it is possible. So
It
yeah.
it also made it much easier. So when we get to pre-filming, like we get to the pre-production preparation, um, the list of screen shots that we want and the angles, and is it a still shot, is it a moving shot, what are the angles that we want. By practicing that in the rehearsal process, it was so much easier for me to lay that out for you and the production team.
Mhm.
To I had a very By then I'd kind of figured out what was going to work and what wasn't. So I felt like that also lent itself to why, shockingly, the whole film day was the smoothest I've ever experienced.
Mhm.
I felt like that just helped everything flow really well. I knew about how long it would take, how many tries it would take to get a shot, and I knew exactly what I wanted, which was different than previous films. I
Mhm.
was more experimental in those, but this one, that practice in the studio of those camera angles and what it would look like, and is that the kind of look I wanted, made everything else, the whole film day itself, flow much better.
Right, which goes to show, yeah, how much time you spend in pre-production. Because a lot of these venues, they charge by the hour.
Yeah.
So it really does help if you're on your game and you can wrap it up as soon as possible. So the more time you spend in that pre-production and preparation and knowing what you want and communicating with your team, so helpful and will save you money in the long run.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to save money, as we
Yes.
all.
Um, so what challenges did arise from the process through the project choreographically or film wise?
That's a great question. It's weird because this film went smoothly. I think some of the challenges were because I worked with a large group. honestly, probably one of the biggest challenges was just scheduling, finding enough days and times that everybody could be there, as well as the film day itself. Because I had, I think it's 9 dancers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of schedules to kind of accommodate. So I think that was probably the most challenging is I love choreographing for larger groups, but that means that's how many people. It kind of exponentially makes it more challenging on the schedule side to allow for enough rehearsals, and then the actual film day. That was probably the most challenging part.
I gotcha. So what were some of your favorite collaboration elements?
Well, one of my favorites was that this was the first time I've collaborated with my husband. So
Yes.
he is the composer of the music, and this was the first time he's ever had his music be used for a film. And so he had a piece of music that he had already composed, and he had a whole library of music. And so I went through the library and I found this piece of music and I really fell in love with it, but it wasn't quite what I was envisioning for the film as a whole. It was a lot shorter, and there was a couple of different elements I was hoping it could capture in the music. So he and I had a very collaborative process, and we're still married, which is great. It was really went smoothly. But and it's a testament to him. He really was open to hearing my ideas, and then coming based on those, come up with different thoughts of what direction the music could go in. And so we did a lot of back and forth, probably over about 3 weeks, before we got the music finalized. And I felt really good about that. So that was actually fun. And we've never done that before. We've been married now 20 years. So, and his art's always been his art, and my art's always been my art.
Right.
And so this is the first time in 20 years we've collaborated, and we had a great time.
So I'm looking forward to the next collaboration between you two.
I am too. He's actually very excited about it.
Yeah. And he's like you said, he's been sitting on this library, and man, I'm looking forward to adding him to the roster even more in the future because he's on it and he did a great job with your music.
He's been like this like closet composer. He does it for fun. But I think like many artists aren't sure what other people would think of it. So it's very intimidating to put that out there for other people's opinions, especially in today's social media world where things are forever. But he did want to. He was really at a point where he said, I'm tired of hiding this. I want other people to hear this. And so it led to him being more open to this, and now he's opened up his library for other choreographers to use, and he's very generous. Like he's offering often the opportunity to use it copyright free and royalty free, which is unusual and very difficult to find for dance films music that you can use for the purposes. So I'm hoping that this actually sort of it becomes a launch pad for his own artistic journey in collaboration with other artists.
Yes. That would be wonderful. Um, so was the process what you expected? I know you've done this, you've been here a few years now. But from start of this year to finish of this year, was it what you expected?
It was better than that. It was what I hoped.
Okay.
So, and I say that because last year I had this vision for the film, and the process, everybody was wonderful, but gosh, if it could go wrong, it did. Like everything seemed to go wrong, and it seemed, often it was like somewhat in my control, but often it was a lot of things that were just simply out of my control. It just happened that way, right? And so last year I just felt off step throughout the whole process. Like dancers had to drop out for personal reason. That happens. The venue, we had some snafus with the preparation and the equipment and the timing and things like that. And the film day got rushed. So it just felt like this year went so smoothly that I feel like it was like the karma or the reward for having gone through some challenges last year.
Yes, you were due.
Yeah, I felt that way. So
So how did you get involved with CFCC in the first place?
Very interesting. So I had been teaching at a local dance studio for 14 years, and I had made a really difficult decision to leave, and it was difficult. I mean, I had been teaching kids, um, since they were young. And some of them were friends of my children, so I'd grown very close. So it was like leaving my family. And I wanted to stay in the dance world, but it felt very hard to when I had to separate from my family, my dance family there. So I was looking for other ways to explore dance, explore movement, make new connections. So I'd heard of this thing called Central Florida Choreographers Collaboration, and I saw they had this project meetup. Literally, I think it was like the next night. I think it was like, yeah, I think it was I looked it up and it said there's a project meetup tomorrow night. And I went, well, I'm not dancing anymore. It was a class. And I was like, I'm not dancing, but I'm going to reach out and see if maybe I can just come and observe because I just want to be around other artists and dancers. So I reached out to you, Amanda, and you said, sure, come on by. And so I came and I observed the class, and it was just great. It was a fabulous class. And I got a chance to meet other choreographers who were involved in that first season. You had already set up the first six film choreographers for that season. And I said, I know you've got that set, but I'd love to be involved in future projects, that kind of thing. And as it happened, you shared that one of them had unfortunately had to unexpectedly drop out, and you had a slot to fill. And so we talked, and you invited me to get involved, and I jumped in, dived in head first, and fell in love with it. So.
And you've been involved with CFCC, not just as a choreographer, but on so many different aspects. We've become really good friends. We talk all the time. And I have to say, like, you're sort of my rock in some places because I'm like texting you at like 2:00 in the morning. Carla, what do you think about this? I'm always bouncing ideas off of you. And it's been amazing to do that. So, and it's kind of sort of evolved into this new found love for you for film.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
So for me, I feel like a kid in a candy store a little bit. So because for me, I recognize and see how little I know so far, and I have a whole new world to learn, and that's so exciting to me. Like, I've been choreographing for so many years, and it's not that I couldn't learn it, but you kind of get stuck in a rut. I think even choreographically, as much as you try to evolve, I think we all naturally fall into certain movement vocabularies or certain patterns or even certain themes. And as much as I kept trying to branch out, I found myself falling back into that one of those same patterns. Then you come along and say, let's turn it into a film. Like during COVID, what was supposed to be a stage show turned into, the need to transform it to a dance film. And I did the first one and I went, oh my God, as soon as I saw on the screen, I went, oh, I would do everything differently because it's film. Not that it was bad. I felt that it was bad.
It wasn't. It was a great film.
But all of a sudden I had all these other different ways and ideas of doing it because now I could change the angle of the audience, like what their viewpoint was. Was it close up? Was it far away? Was it from above? Was it from below? Boy, does dance look different when you start changing that. And so then I just, like I said, it's like I felt like a kid in a candy shop and went, well, let's try this. No, that doesn't work. That's terrible. Let's try this. Oh, that's kind of interesting. This is something we could play with. And so then that led to me wanting to be more hands-on with how that camera angle looked because I'm trying to create that viewpoint. So that's when I said I got like a little GoPro. I said, I could afford a little GoPro. I don't have a lot of money, but I could afford a little GoPro. And so then I started playing with that. And good God, using a gimbal the first time was a hot mess. I just couldn't control at all. But I'm not afraid to try, and I'm not afraid to fail because I don't consider it failure. I consider it figuring out how not to do it. So I like trying. I'm always open to trying anything, new with a different angle or new theme or new idea. I don't think I think I'm old enough now that maybe I'm not as afraid of failing because nobody cares anymore. I'm not some, up and coming thing at all. I'm very comfortable with my age and with my experience. And I want to be here in the moment, just playing, exploring, trying to continue growing as an artist, whether anybody knows or cares or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. So yeah, I agree. And I think that one of my favorite things about this process is not that we're trying to get up here and we're trying to be, all professional and everything's got to be high quality, but no, we're here to play. And this started out as this, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's try it. Okay. And everybody's like, yeah, okay, let's try it. And that's still where we are, even though the quality has gotten better, because we've learned so much over just hitting the ground running. But yeah, I think that's how you do it. And it sort of takes the pressure off and puts the fun back into it.
yeah, well, and I think part of the fun though is also the friendships. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to what you were talking about and say right back at you. I found a great friend, somebody who I can talk dance with all day long. My husband is so relieved. He knows that if if I say, oh, I'm going to be hanging out with Amanda, he's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, it could be hours. Because we get into a conversation about art and dance and film and just life. And we start going down all these different paths and it's so intertwined.
Yes.
With who we are and what we create. And I think we both have found kindred spirit in the joy we get from that. And so it's just fun to be with you because you also create so much joy for everybody and opportunity. And I honestly don't know what I would have done without CFCC. I came to find it when I was really struggling with how do I keep dance in my life, but let go of my, relationship with that studio.
Wow, Carla. Thank you for sharing that. And I love you. You're life-changing. I mean, these past 3 years, they would not have been the same without you. And you're welcome, Robert. So what's next for you?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I would like to keep playing. I'd like to keep exploring through movement, but honestly, what I really love doing right now is the camera work and thinking of learning how to be a director, possibly learn the production side, because I think that that's a really important part, even from the choreographer, to have a respect and an understanding for those people and those tools that help bring our work to life. And that was true for me. I did technical theater way back when I used to perform, but I also did technical theater and I would stage manage. And boy, did I find that really helpful in being able to communicate with the tech crew for productions. I could, kind of speak the language and it just made that whole communication and relationship so much more easygoing. And I find that's true for film as well. And I'm just a beginner. I feel like I know I've had a few years, but like, let's face it, there's still so much to learn, and that fascinates me.
I don't know that I will ever not feel like a beginner because there is so much to learn. So I'm there with you, but I'm happy I get to learn it with people like you. So,
Me too.
how can people find you?
Find me. Well, I am reluctantly am on Instagram at I'm at Dancing Ninja One. I finally got an Instagram account. Again, I'm a little bit older than many of the other choreographers that are involved, but I'm still learning Instagram. Sorry, folks. But I do try to do that. I'm on Facebook as well, under my own name, Carla Armstrong. And yeah, those are the best ways to reach me.
Well, it's been awesome chatting with you today, Carla. What an awesome conversation we had. And it's been a pleasure. And I'm so happy to release this to the public. I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
I'm hoping somebody out there will listen and enjoy it and find it helpful.
Yes. That was Carla Armstrong, Season 3 choreographer with Central Florida Choreographers collaboration. You can see Carla's project along with dozens of other films in ChoreoCollab Film Fest 2022. ChoreoCollab Film Fest 2022 is screening online until November 20th exclusively at ChoreoCollab.com. We hope you'll join us next time. Keep creating, friends.